What is that experience like for bishops' wives?
I'm going to be super authentic and real. That's the only way I roll. And there are times when it is really hard.
Sure. Hello, Saints. My name is Jeff. I am a pastor in Utah, exploring everything I can about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And there have been many surprises along the way. One of them being when I learned that as a pastor, Latter-day Saints don't have pastors. There are individuals who serve in a lay role or volunteer role called bishops. I was also surprised to learn that though Latter-day Saints do go to church on Sunday mornings and have a normal church service, what takes place during those church gatherings is also very unique. For example, you don't have pastors preaching sermons in Latter-day Saint church services. So then, how is church leadership and a normal Sunday morning similar or different between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Protestant evangelical churches? I recently had the opportunity to join forces with a Latter-day Saint friend of mine named Francom, and he interviewed a group of pastors, and I interviewed a group of bishops. And both of these conversations are part of the Hello Saints virtual summit that you can sign up for free by going to www.hellosaintssummit.com. This is just one of many conversations that take place during this summit, where I've assembled a group of 20 presenters, half Latter-day Saint, half evangelical. And we discuss topics like who is Jesus, what is truth, faith and politics, family, marriage, what is heaven going to be like, where did we come from, how do we understand Scripture? So I'm excited to share this sneak peek with you on church leadership with pastors and bishops. I'd like to bring to the screen some of my new and old friends. My old friend, Francom, who's been helping a lot with the summit. Hey, Kurt.
Hey, how are you?
And we have Clint Pulver, who is currently in Utah County, Utah. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Thanks for being here. And then Nate Sharp, who is a lifelong Latter-day Saint, correct? Who resides in Texas.
That's right. Yes.
Awesome. Clint, tell me what is a day in the life of a bishop like as you are planning that Sunday morning service? What freedom do you have to choose what goes on versus certain guidelines that you're kind of bound to follow? What does it look like week to week to plan a church service?
So first and foremost, my focus as a bishop is to really help and support and connect the youth of the church to Christ. How can I support the younger generation? Really, that age demographic is, your 12 to 18-year-old age range, the youth of the church. And so that's something that I've loved and enjoy. We have youth activities that take place generally on a weekly basis. And today I leave right after this to go on a camp out for 3 days with all of our young men. And so we're just doing activities where we get to be with them. We get to help them. We get to learn from them and again, help them grow closer to Christ. So first and foremost, that is the focus. And then I would say along with that is 1,500 other things that a bishop is constantly juggling, from the financial sides of the ward, specific emotional needs, the administration of the ward. We have a ward council. There's all these different fundamental constructs within a ward that the bishop helps to oversee. But a day in the life would start on a Sunday for me. Right now I get there at 7 o'clock, 7:30-ish, and I'm turning on all the lights. We're making sure the air's on, the heat's on, if it's wintertime. And then usually we're starting with bishopric meeting. So the bishopric is the bishop and his 2 counselors. And then also there's an executive secretary and a ward clerk that are generally in those meetings as well. And we're talking about the affairs of the ward. Who needs help? Who needs support? Let's talk about sacrament meeting. And let's talk about the talks. And we've got Mother's Day coming up. What's something that we can do for the mothers in our ward? Oh, did you know that sister so-and-so just moved out and so-and-so's moving in? And how can we coordinate with the elders quorum to make sure that they're supported on being welcome to the ward? So we're discussing those things as a bishopric. And then generally after that meeting, that can happen anywhere from, sometimes there's 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what we're talking about. I'm a big fan of, if we don't need to meet, let's not meet. Let's be out and helping and lifting. Sometimes those meetings are necessary. After that, it's me meeting with other members and then preparing for sacrament meeting. It's the most important thing that we do on Sunday. And the bishop will then oversee the ordinance of the sacrament. And that is a 1-hour event. And then after that, there is a second hour where we break off into other meetings for young women's, the Relief Society, Elders Quorum, Sunday School. And then after church ends, it's officially a 2-hour block. Then for me and the specific demographics of my ward, I usually don't get home until 7:30, sometimes 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Every Sunday is a marathon for me. And it's meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting with individuals of our ward.
If there's one thing that really strikes close to home for me, it's the impact, and again, I'm going to use my vernacular, the impact that ministry can have on a wife, ministry can have on kids. There's a reason why, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but in the American, the Protestant evangelical world, there's a term called PKs, pastors' kids. There's a dynamic there that impacts the culture, especially because in our context, as pastors, you don't serve for 5 years. It's a lifetime vocation. So, my kids don't know me in my former role in marketing or radio and TV. They only know me as pastor dad. And now I'm this bizarre, Frankenstein YouTube pastor. So whatever that's going to do to them, I don't know. They can work that out with their therapist. But it impacts the family. So Clint, give me a little insight. How does serving in the role as a bishop, as best as you can speak for your wife or bishop wives in general, how does that role impact marriages, and what is that experience like for bishops' wives?
I'm going to be super authentic and real. That's the only way I roll. And there are times when it is really hard.
Sure.
And it's very taxing. We have 3 little kids. 6 months after I was called as a bishop, we lost a little boy. Mm. And my first funeral as a bishop, we help conduct funerals as well. First funeral I did was for my little son. And I would sit up there on the stand and I would watch as my wife would wrangle and try to corral 2 little children under the age of 4. And then I travel, and sometimes, I don't know if it's allowed or not. We let it happen. My little kids will come up and they sit on the stand with me, because sometimes that's the only time they get to see dad that week. And it is a massive sacrifice. And I think, and our current stake president can talk to this, because I think when you call a bishop, you're also calling their family to some extent. The consideration that goes to the spouse, right? The sacrifice that their spouse is going to make in this journey is real. But the blessings of it all. And I think there is some hard parts of, I'll come home from a Sunday just so tired but fulfilled. And I saw miracle after miracle after miracle. And she doesn't get to see that. She doesn't get to experience that. And she was home changing diapers all day with screaming children, and it was hard and frustrating. And she's like, well, great. I'm glad you got to help people come unto Christ, because it's been an absolute nightmare here at home. Mm. But I think, though, she's also realized, and this is, boy, that the power of a good spouse and a great marriage is she understands it, though, and she gets it to the point of, we've made covenants and we've made promises. And when the stake president called us, I'll never forget, he said, will you accept this call? And Kelly, with tears in her eyes, she said, we made this decision a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So yes, we will serve. Will it be hard? Yeah. But whenever in the gospel of Jesus Christ is it easy? Yeah. So I think through this trial, again, have we seen faith and miracles and all the things grow and increase in our lives? Absolutely. And is it hard? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, thank you for that authentic answer and for sharing honestly there, because I think, the reason why that strikes me so deeply, I know the pressure of being held to a standard based on the role that you're serving in. I know the scrutiny. I know the expectations that people impose on you. And I know that the same goes for my wife as a pastor. the women looking to my wife, or even again the scrutiny of how she's handling or parenting our kids. That is a real challenge, and it's a reality, I think, in any community, but specifically in roles that sound very similar between bishops and bishops' wives, pastors and pastors' wives. And as you talk about the whole idea of sacrifice, Nate, tell me how much serving on a mission prepares you for that. Because if there are two roles that I've heard individuals, especially men, in the church articulate sacrifice, but a sacrifice worth making, it's men who have served in the role of a bishop and guys who have gone on missions. Tell me how your role serving your mission maybe prepared you or helped you as you faced on the calling for bishop.
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I think maybe most fundamentally, the way a mission prepares you to eventually serve as a bishop is just through the fact that being a missionary in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is really sort of a pastoral role in my experience. So you're trying to lead people to Jesus Christ, and it's not just people who are not Christians yet. I mean, even we do a lot of work with less active members of our own church who maybe for whatever variety of reasons are no longer affiliating or no longer coming out, and you're trying to go out and visit them and develop a relationship with them and help them resolve concerns. And so when I think about fundamentally what missionaries do, I'm struck, and your question is what helped me make the connection. I'm struck by how similar it is to the day-to-day work of a bishop, trying to help people resolve concerns, bearing your own personal witness of Jesus Christ to people, leading them to Christ, helping them resolve concerns. I think it's really similar. And then there's the element of sacrifice that you addressed as well. And I sort of feel like if you can put your entire life on hold for 2 years and go serve voluntarily, pay your own way on a mission, the way Latter-day Saint missions work, then in some sense, a 5-year, tour of duty as a bishop, when you still get to, I say get to keep your full-time job and your other responsibilities with your family and so forth, I think the magnitude of a mission kind of prepares you to handle something like serving as a bishop for 5 years.
So I'm curious to know, how would you explain your typical week as a pastor? Because obviously this is your full-time focus. And so, I mean, how would you summarize a typical week in the life of you as a pastor?
So Mondays is my day of rest, my day off. And so that's at home with family. And then the rest of the days are pretty much broken up. And then the first part of the day, I am either sermon prepping or doing some sort of strategic work of some kind. And in the afternoons, there are meetings. So there are meetings with, advisory teams, staff meetings, one-on-ones, counseling meetings. And then outside of what we would call community group, I don't have regular evening requirements. Outside of community group, and then counseling here and there, but they're not standing. And then Saturday morning, some final sermon prep, and then Sunday morning, a little bit more sermon prep, and then I'm preaching, and then I'm done, and I'm eating Chinese. That's my week.
Nice.
And I just want to point something out too, that the whole concept here of that Monday being a day off or Friday being a day off, that's pretty common for pastors, for people who are Latter-day Saint who might not know that, because Sundays they're draining for us. And also Latter-day Saints might not know this whole concept of community groups or home groups. It's something that probably over the last 20, 25 years has really taken root, and it's you probably are hard-pressed to find a Protestant church that doesn't have some form of home groups where, we go to church with each other on Sundays, but then, either once a week, once every couple weeks, maybe once a month, you're assigned to a home group or community group where you meet in each other's homes. You have a meal, you might do a Bible study, you might have a prayer time, you might, play washers out back, but it's just a time to get people together. So,
Yep.
Awesome. Obviously there's some pluses and minuses of being a pastor and the livelihood and and the demands you have, and the burnout that comes from these things. Like I remember feeling that as a bishop, but at least I knew that there was a sunset to this calling. It was generally a 5-6 year thing, and I knew that there was life after this type of thing. And I'm just curious as far as not only the burnout dynamic, but also sometimes the validation that can coax people into these roles that maybe they're misinterpreting that validation for a calling as a calling from God. What thoughts come to mind as far as reconciling that validation that comes as being the lead pastor or the guy on the stage on Sundays?
I would say for me, I've seen this acutely close in so many levels, and so I think it's good when you are in any kind of leadership, influential role, to stay sober about that reality. To be reminded that, like you said, like that burnout, and not just burnout, but there's a lot of things that can come through that. And that's always a half a step away if I'm not walking with Jesus. Let's just be flat out honest. That's not. I'm not talking miles away. I'm talking. It's a half a step. And so remaining sober about that reality, engaging in deep relationship, and like I've said, I think walking with Jesus the way Jesus walks, right? I think, and not to overly simplify it, because it's actually not simple at all, but I think it's okay to be a creature, right? And I say those words intentionally. Like I think we can get intoxicated with ourselves, and I think and we can become messiahs in our own mind. And we believe, we'll never verbally say this, but we believe we are beyond creature and we become creator. And I think remaining as creature, someone who is dependent, someone whose value is from someone else, someone whose energy and ability and wisdom is from someone else, that then means I gotta stay connected with whoever that's from, and walk in the rhythms and ways that bear fruit in my own soul. And so there's a lot I could say that, but those are the things that I would say, like, as you're wrestling with validation, that's a real wrestle. And let's be clear, every human being wants that validation. Every human being wants to be celebrated. Like every human being does. So the question isn't whether you like it or want it. You do. Now, what will you do to guard your soul from being drunk in that desire? Like, what will you do to put things in your life and then to not, like I think many leaders do, they lie to themselves. And it's easy to do so. So I just think those are things that are helpful as you are walking with the weight of leadership in any capacity that can guard your soul and your life.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other thoughts around that topic?
Yeah, real quick, I would say I think it's important to build a culture too, where the number one guy in your church is Jesus, and it's not you, and that starts with you. It starts with, and it starts with the little subtle things too, right? So, people will tell me every single Sunday, whether or not they're good sermons, I don't know, but they'll come up to me and they'll say, like, that was a really good word. Really great sermon, pastor. And I'm like, well, praise God. Like I'm glad that God used me, a broken vessel, to communicate to you. But there's a danger in swinging that pendulum too far the other way, right? And you do need encouragement. And so what I've done is over the years, I collect I call them like the greatest hits of encouragement. So these are handwritten notes or cards or things like that from people in the church, and this is part of what keeps me going. Right, when I'm down and I need encouragement, I'll go back and I'll be like, Kyle, that is almost a decade worth of encouragement. Read how the Lord used you, and then it fills me back up, and it's a really humbling experience of like, well, if He used me in the past 10 years, maybe He'll continue to use me for another 10.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I think I would just speak to what Kyle was saying there about culture. The culture is what I'm learning. There's language around this. If we create a soil which allows humility and joy and delight to sprout, or it allows kind of some selfish, dark things to sprout depending on the soil. And that's very much a role that a lead pastor has to take with the other leaders around him. That's a discussion that I'm in with my board right now of like, how do we create that proper soil in order to not allow the dark things to rise, whether it's egotism or narcissism or whatever. And let's be real. It's a big problem. That's one of the epidemics in the evangelical church. We have had our fair share of narcissistic leaders rise and fall, and it happens in very big churches, and it happens in very small churches, and it's an incredibly sad and destructive thing. And as a pastor, I think in this climate, when we've seen that happen a fair amount recently, we just got to be real careful about how we look inward, and we be real honest with our own stuff. Yeah. And then there's safe people to let in on that, and making sure that we're not setting ourselves up as something that we're not, which can be super tempting to do.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. The thing is that I don't know as much about with Kyle, but I've got to guess just from a statistical standpoint. But I know for a fact that Nate, and I know for a fact that Curtis, and I know for a fact me, we have been tied to multiple people who have functioned in ministry who have had very serious fallings in whatever capacity, whether it be moral failure, whether it be mental health issue, whether it be family blowout or stuff like that. Yep. So a healthy pastor is not a pastor who has it all together. A healthy pastor is one, like Curtis said, that knows. It reminds me of what Billy Graham said one time. He had this whole thing where obviously he would never be in a room with another woman with the door closed, and the quote behind it always sticks with me. And he said, "It'll only take 5 seconds of indiscretion to obliterate 50 years of ministry." And I mean, that's how close we are, which is what Curtis is getting at. And that there's the other side of that too. Like we can get drunk on that affirmation, and it's one of the reasons why people have been saying, "Oh yeah, Pastor Jeff, you're in Utah, so you can plant a church, so you can just And I've told multiple people, my wife and I have talked about this ad nauseum. As long as Hello Saints is what it is, and people are recognizing Pastor Jeff and what I'm doing on YouTube, you're not going to find me anywhere close to planting a church, because people are going to be coming to the church to see Pastor Jeff, and I'm not interested in that. So I'll serve at other churches, I'll preach at other churches, but even whenever I preach, I don't announce it. Like, people be like, "Hey, can you put out a schedule when you're preaching?" I'm like, "No, because I don't want you to come seeing Pastor Jeff. If you want to try to find it online somewhere, that's fine." But that's how close all of us are to wanting to just like put our sails in the wind of that affirmation and let it take us away. Like I said, these are just small clips of much larger conversations that I'm really excited to share with you during the Hello Saints Virtual Summit. You can sign up for free by going to www.hellosaintssummit.com. And don't forget, if you make a donation to Hello Saints, as a thank you, you'll receive an all-access pass, which comes with a lot of perks. You'll also have the opportunity, when you sign up for the free pass, to share it with 5 people. And if you get them to sign up for the free pass, then you can get an all-access pass without the need for any donation. All of the information you need about the summit is in the description below. This is going to be an amazing experience, and I'm excited for you to hear from all of these different voices from Latter-day Saint and Protestant backgrounds, as we together expand the conversation to fight criticism with curiosity. So check out the Hello Saints Virtual Summit, and keep coming back here for more YouTube videos. In fact, why don't you like this one and subscribe? It really helps the channel out. So until next time, I'll see you later, Saints. So fun fact, the church that I record Hello Saints in is a sanctuary that I recorded in until I moved to Utah. Now it's on a screen behind me. Is the church? I was noticing that. I was like, "That's my church, dog. That's your church." This is the church. This is a sanctuary that Curtis preached in for years and years and years.
For years, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's a little fun connection point there.
That's great.